様たるんでいるぞ。決戦は間近というのに、そのへっぴり腰は何か。
Stars seemed to spin around inside my head. I could just lie down on the floor, but that'd only make him more angry. I've got no intention of being obedient. Still, it'd be stupid to get myself punched for no reason, so I got up and stood at attention. The fighting's close, is it? You really think the American troops are likely to show up on this forgotten island? Then let them come right now. That's what I've been waiting for all this time.
その腐った目つきは何か。貴様、そんなに死にたくないか。そんなに米兵が恐ろしいか。そんな気合では打ち取れんぞ。
I got hit again. Could you please quit your whining already? Filthy cowards. They let themselves be controlled by this inexplicable anger because it's the only way to distract themselves from their own fear. Heart and spirit aren't of any use when the battle becomes hopeless. When trapped by an insurmountable hopelessness, humans tend to rely on several other emotions to escape their fear. For these young, inexperienced soldiers, anger was a very convenient emotion to fall back upon. Anger is the wine they used to paralyze their fear. It made them chant, "Damn the British, damn the Americans," as they swung their bamboo spears around and called it drilling. The more wine you drink, the more you need to drink to get drunk. Their useless anger continued to pile up, day after day, without pause. I did not fear death. So, I had no need of the wine called anger. It has made their cowardice all the more apparent to me.
その目つきだ。魚だ。貴様の目は死んだ魚の目だ。
However, it went both ways. Just as I was able to spot their cowardice, they were able to pick up on my lethargy.
後ろには金蔵はいるか。注意殿がお呼びだ。立て。もたもたするな。駆け足。
First Lieutenant Yamamoto was the commanding officer in charge of the Rokkenjima garrison. He was just another filthy coward trying to forget his fear with violence, and would often reprimand his subordinates for slacking off at the drop of a hat. Whenever he was in a good mood and started spouting off stories of his life, they were all about how much of a thug he had been, ignoring the rules of society. On and on about how so-and-so was a prick, so he taught him a lesson, or how everyone was so scared of him that he got special treatment. He kept on talking about what a vile human he was, as though it was a badge of honor. Normally, I had nothing to do with this lieutenant, who I couldn't respect in any way. He'd always hang around with his non-commissioned subordinates. So as long as I treated him with a snappy salute, I could more or less ignore him for the time being. Now that the construction project on this island had been suspended indefinitely, there's no longer any use for an engineer like me. So why did the lieutenant ask to see me specifically? At that moment, I couldn't think of anything.
後ろ宮、貴様は外国語が堪能であると聞いたが、英語と中国語を話せるであります。英語と中国語を話せるであります。注意殿。
I see they got their lines mixed up. The lieutenant liked to brag about his education in front of the non-commissioned officers, but he held a bit of a grudge against me for being even more highly educated than him. Since he also felt uncomfortable having a subordinate who was older than him, I wasn't exactly the type he'd be willing to confide in. Just the fact that I knew several languages must have hurt his pride.
ならばイタリア語はどうか。
I knew it was Italian.
わかりません。
では貴様にイタリア人との通訳は務まらん。
英語を喋れる者がいれば可能と。
なるほど、確かに。
あります。
Why on earth would he need an interpreter in a cave on an uninhabited island that even our superiors forgot about? This question made it clear that some guest had arrived on Rokkenjima who would need an interpreter.
よし、後ろ宮、貴様を俺の通訳に命ずる。
That evening, I found out exactly what he was talking about. That pointless submarine dock in a cavern that had never been used was now being approached slowly by a submarine of the Italian Navy. Of course, I knew that the Italians were our allies. However, this was the first time I'd seen anything from their military with my own eyes.
どうしてイタリア軍が？確か1943年。これはどういうことでしょう？
降伏したのはイタリア王国だ。だが、それを受け入れない者たちは、親独政権 RSI を樹立させ戦争
RSI。
イタリア社会共和国、別名サロ共和国だ。
詳しい。何も知らぬ者は。イタリアは枢軸国の中で1943年にそれは間違い。イタリア社会共和国軍は開戦から1945年4月29日まで
ベルリン降伏はその3日腰抜けどころか大健闘だな。しかし RSI 海軍が日本まで航行できるような潜水
Okay, this music's getting really intense.
そう
They're
で
really
なくても
building up here.
はるばる日本までやってきたこと自体が驚きです。彼らはなぜ日本に六軒島に？
The submarine was both weather-worn and massive. I doubt anyone had even imagined that a foreign submarine would come all the way out here, when we'd never even had one of our own submarines dock. All the guards on Rokkenjima, of which there were only about 30, stood at attention as the submarine docked.
イタリア軍なんて初めて。なんでも事故かショクライで航行不能になったんだと。換気装置がやられて塩素ガスが換気できなくなったって聞いたぞ。中尉殿の話によると何か重要な暗号変換器か新型エンジンなんかの設計図じゃない。
Gold.
オラ積みに云々より上層部がまだここを覚えててくれたことの方が。
後ろ宮、貴様は通訳だろうが。
はい、注意殿。
On top of the hatch was a young Italian saluting us. Normally, this should have been the job of a commissioned officer, but his clothes looked like those of a sailor, and it really didn't look like he had the dignity and composure of a ship's captain. That probably meant that all the commissioned officers in charge had died in the accident that had befallen the sub. Crew members crawled out of the hatch one by one. They all looked pale and entirely worn out. I'm not sure how long ago the accident happened, but being crammed together in a tiny sub filled with chlorine gas for any amount of time can't be good for your health. Not only had the ventilators broken, but traveling about carelessly on the surface of the waters around Japan these days would be foolish in the extreme. It had been like a trip inside a can of poison gas. Almost all of them were unable to walk without leaning on someone else. It looked like a bunch of people staggering out of a hospital boat.
後ろ宮、艦長は誰か聞け。私がこの島の指揮官であることを説明せよ。
ようこそ日本へ。英語がわかる者は。
Crew members seemed to understand what I was speaking, that I was speaking English, but it looked as though none of them could speak it. Eventually, someone who seemed to be dressed as an officer saluted.
ようこそ日本へ。艦長でありますか。
I can not speak English. Please wait.
The officer answered in slow, laborious English. After asking us to wait, he shouted something to his subordinates in rapid Italian. Looked as though he was telling them to get someone among them who could speak English.
後ろ宮、何と言っている。
待てと言っています。英語のわかる人間を呼んでいるのかもしれません。
At that moment, I heard a high-pitched cough. It wasn't a man's cough. It was a woman's. I wonder who it could be.
私英語わかるわ。
As she came down from the hatch, a young woman with beautiful golden hair said this in English. In this filthy cavern, the appearance of one as beautiful as she was, seemed like an angel descending upon us.
ようこそ日本へ。艦長はいますか。
艦長は死んだわ。士官はあそこの彼だけよ。
お悔やみ申し上げます。何かお手伝いはできますか。
新鮮な空気と水が欲しい。まだ息のある人間もいる。休ませる場所が欲しいわ。
協力しましょう。他に英語のわかる人間は。
いたけどみんな死んだわ。私だけよ。
後ろ宮、女は何を言っている。艦長は誰だ。さっきの男のその女は何者なのか。早く通訳しろ。
The lieutenant has been yelling like that for a while now. He must have been surprised to see such a beautiful woman appear from a submarine, and more than a little annoyed to see all of her attention focused on me alone. It was a mark of how divinely beautiful she was.
注意殿、彼女だけが英語をわかるようです。彼女が彼らの通訳になります。艦長は死亡。代表者は先ほどの士官のようです。
うるさくあなたに叫んでいる。まさかあなたの上司なの？
不幸なことに私が美しいお嬢さんを独り占めして。
あら、東洋人にお世辞をもらえるとは思わなかったわ。綺麗な英語ね。あなたは育ちが良さそうだわ。怒鳴ってるみっともない男とは。あなたがここの将校だったらよかったのに。
おや、私も西洋人にお世辞をもらえるとは思います。
あなた面白い人。名前は？
後宮金蔵です。よろしければお嬢さんの名前も。
ベアトリーチェ・カスティリオーニ。
ようこそベアトリーチェ日本へ。
Okay. That was when I first met Beatrice, the woman who would capture my heart for the rest of my life.
ベアトリーチェとはイタリア人だったのですか？
I think we established that
そうだ
already.
彼女は RSI 交換の娘。どうやら彼女の父親こそが残念ながらロッケン島にたどり着いた時はもう
その交換がなぜ日本にスエズ運河からインド洋を越えてはるばる日本まで来たというのか。
確かに。なぜわざわざ日本までやってきたのでしょう？
途方もない規模のその全容はわからぬ。その潜水艦がただならぬ任務を帯びていたらしいことは後に理解することとなる。
They said that there had been about 60 of them at the time of their departure. However, only about 10 of them, including Beatrice, had survived. Their submarine had apparently hit a mine or something in the nearby waters and sustained a great deal of damage. They told us that it had flooded rapidly with water, which had taken out the batteries and released a large amount of chlorine gas. Their sub had become completely incapable of continuing further. Nothing but a massive lump of metal floating by the dock. Since the sub seemed to be carrying something of immense value, the higher-ups ordered us to investigate. After questioning the Italians, with Beatrice and me acting as double interpreters, we concluded that this thing of immense value must have been her father himself. Apparently Beatrice's father was extremely high up in the RSI hierarchy, and it was thought that he might have worked alongside Mussolini himself. Though their massive voyage had apparently been part of some top-secret mission, now that the man himself and all the commissioned officers had died, their reason for coming to Japan remained a mystery. And our higher-ups were telling us to investigate, which meant that even they didn't know what it was. Their ship had broken down, their mission was unknown, and the high official they had been carrying was dead. And even the Japanese government didn't know why they were here. The Italians' great and perilous voyage had come to a meaningless and utterly fruitless end.
よかった。日本の潮風はてっきり醤油の匂いがすると思ってたわ。
Okay, like, that's just straight up racist, man.
お互い様です。イタリア人の髪はパスタでできてるって思ってました。
I thought Italian oceans would smell like marinara.
あら、そうよ。アルデンテに仕上げるには茹で加減が難しいの。なら日本人はみんなスパゲティネイロだわ。
よくご存知で。日本人はシャンプーの代わりにイカスミを使います。
金蔵はすごいわ。何でも知っているのね。イタリアに来たことがあるの？
ありません。しかし本はいろいろと読みました。
東洋人がイタリアの本を？へえ。例えばどんな？
ニッコロ・マキャベッリ、ダンテ・アリギエーリ。だからあなたが永遠の淑女である。
おお、なんて。金蔵はとんでもない勉強。あなたはひょっとして日本では高貴な家の出身なのでは？
さあ。
あなたは他の野蛮そうな日本人とはまるで私にはわかるの。あなたはきっと高貴な家の人間だわ。後宮家は日本の貴族の家柄なの？
とんでもない。紡績で一山当てただけのただの成金の一族です。私が勉強していたのは何をすることも許されなかったら本を読むか酒に溺れるかしかやることがなかったからですよ。
There had been no trace of malice in Beatrice's words. It had just been a curious question asked to a friend from a faraway country. However, Beatrice was from a noble family herself, so she could tell. She could see the faint gloomy look on Kinzo's face.
許して、金蔵。あなたのような高貴な人が深く考えなかったわ。
私の一族など死ねば後宮などという姓は、そしてそれこそが。
金蔵は死にたくて。そんなのダメ。家族が悲しむわ。
Nah, trust me, they
家族
wouldn't.
など私には誰も。
I have a wife for the sake of public appearances, and children. However, I've never wanted any of them. Everything is a fleeting daydream created by those selfish, greedy elders. So, at least while I'm on this island, I can forget about all of that and find some peace. Peace? But haven't I spent each and every day complaining that I wasn't sent to the front and haven't managed to die yet?
私にあなたの苦しみはわからないけれど許して金蔵
Forgive me, Kinzo. Yes, those words are probably what did it. All the Japanese called me Ishiromiya. It reminded me that I was the property of the Ishiromiya family every time they talked to me. But she was different. She called me Kinzo. Not Ishiromiya. So maybe, just for the time I chat with her like this, I can forget that cursed family.
金蔵
I had meant to make Beatrice feel guilty, but she seemed certain that her thoughtless words had hurt me.
ありがとう。あなたが私を金蔵と呼んでくれるから、私はようやく本当の意味で私を見てくれる。
あなたはとても遠い異国で出会った外国人だけれど、あなたの心はとても繊細で美しい。私たちはきっと近所に住んでいたならとても当たり前な友人になっていたわ。私も嬉しいのよ。あなたは私のことをカスティリオーニのご令嬢とは呼ばないわ。
We were both in the same position. Her Castiglione family must have been a rigid place as well. Though we came from different countries, we had finally found something that we both understood.
金蔵は親しい者には何て名前で？
Goldsmith.
いえ、普通に金蔵と呼ばれていました。
Nah, that's my boy Goldsmith.
じゃあ、あなたは私をベアトリーチェと呼ぶの。親しい人間は私のことをビーチェと呼んでいた。
Beachy? Whoa. Beatrice, I don't think you want to be beachy.
あなたもそうしてくれると嬉しいわ。
わかりました。これからは親しみを込めてビーチェとお呼びを。
Beach?
ダメダメ、堅苦しい言葉はだって私たちはもう友人なのだから。
A bright smile stretched across Beatrice's face. Beachy.
あの美少が我が記憶より薄れることはない。
おじい様はベアトリーチェと出会うことで自分を取り戻されたのですね。
平たく言や浮気だな。
My man Will knows the song. Or, you know, as most people would put it, he cheated on his wife.
ウィルさんは今後も出現を繰り返されるなら、お尻をかばわれる癖をつけることをお勧めします。
Joke's on you, kid. I'm into that shit. After having his butt pinched once more, Will hopped around in pathetic agony. Dude, how sensitive is your ass?
ロッケン島は
You think a pinch and you're just like hopping around like, God damn it, ow, ow, ow. Bruh. Work out your ass. Come on.
ベアトリーチェと初めて出会われた特別な場所だったのですね。
私がこの島に来ることがなければ出会うこともなかった奇跡の島なのだ。
その潜水艦基地の名残とやらは
クワドリアンの近くに今も外界からは見えぬ入り江の影だ。吹き継がって漁師たちも近寄らなかった島だ。私以外に知る者はもはやいるまい。
クワドリアンと屋敷を結ぶ2キロにも及ぶ地下道はその基地の名残なのか。
そうだ。鍾乳洞を改造した広大な地下壕で地下を網羅し、島内各地を要塞化する。私はその地下道を生かし、島の両端に2つの屋
敷、後ろ宮家の屋敷と後ろ宮家から解放された金。
そうだ。私には必要だったのだ。
I mean, shit, if you got the money, why not? I needed it. And I'm like, shit, you need it? You can pay for it? Shit, I ain't gonna judge. Okay, I'm gonna judge a little bit. No, I'm not gonna judge. I'll let him slide.
後ろ宮という呪われたせいから逃れるもう一つの
しかし同情するよ。はるばる日本までやってきて任務を成し遂げられなかったとは気の毒。
パパの任務が何だったか、どこか遠くへ逃げ、大切な日までそれを隠さなければならないと言って
Hide it. Yes, it. It's the gold, isn't it?
それと
It's the gold.
わからないわ。それはとても大切なもので、大切な日まで何年も隠しているつもりだったみたい。いえ、それと一緒に隠れているつもりだったみたい。私に異国の地で長い時間を過ごすことになるかもしれないと。
アンジェロ少尉は罪には特になく、君の父上が輸送すべきよ。
少尉はあなたたちを信用してないわ。私でさえ知っていることを。ひょっとすると少尉はパパの目的と罪にを
それが何だったにせよ、それは俺らには関係ないね。むしろ同盟国なんだ。頼ってくれればいいのに。
金蔵が良い人であることは疑う。少尉にもあなたは信頼できる人間だと伝えてるんだけれど、どうして男というのは異教ではむやみやたらと厳格になるの？普段はみんなもっと陽気な人たちばかりなのに、ここへ来てからみんな妙に空気が張り詰めているわ。少尉は部下たち全員に常時銃を手放さないように命じてる。まるでここが敵地かのようだわ。
That was true. The Italians were clearly the very opposite of relaxed. The Japanese soldiers watching this began to suspect that the Italians didn't really trust them at all.
軍人ならおかしいこと。むしろこういう時こそ規律を引き締めて友軍に恥ずかしいところを見せたくないんじゃないか。
就寝時には必ず根津板を立てるし、もう航行できないスクラップ同然の潜水艦に今もあなたたちを近づけないように。私はなんだか日本人を露骨に毛嫌いしているように見えて気持ちが悪い。
True. It had set up a constant sentry by the submarine, and it refused to let any of the Japanese soldiers come near. This hadn't made the Japanese particularly happy. However, submarines are treated as classified in all countries. Maybe it was just natural for them to stop foreigners from approaching it without reason.
慣れない生活を強いられてみんな気が立ってるんだろう。天候と女将の都合で君たちを本土へ運ぶ船の派遣がまた遅れてる。君たちをいつ本土へ送ってあげられるやら。
We've been told that a boat was being sent for them directly from the mainland. But apparently, thanks to the weather, problems up the command chain, and the recent air raids, they had no ships they could spare on a forgotten island like this. There may have been political issues as well. After all, the Italians' homeland had already surrendered to the Allies. I didn't know the details. The only thing I knew for sure was that they'd been stuck on Rokkenjima for 2 whole weeks, and no one had come to get them. Of course, we had some small boats in Rokkenjima. There was nothing physically stopping us from taking them to a nearby island. Still, Rokkenjima was technically a top-secret base, and contact with the outside world had been strictly forbidden.
仕方がないし、それも悪くないわ。だって船が来てしまったら金蔵とはもう会えなくなってしまうんでしょ。
確かに。
To me, those 2 weeks were the first I'd ever truly lived. The faint 20 years before all seemed to vanish in the sparkle of that pair of weeks. I realized that you'd have to leave this place eventually, and yet this single moment felt so rich and dazzling that I felt myself wishing it could last forever. Then, I heard a voice calling for Beatrice in Italian.
アンジェロ少尉だよ。君に用事みたいだ。
またお小言かしら。日本人とあまり親しくするなと最近うるさいのよ。
Second Lieutenant approached, saluting Kinzo. After glancing at Beatrice as though asking her to translate something, he began to speak in Italian. Judging by his tone, it sounded like something serious.
少尉はとても重要な話があるから 協力を求めたいと言っている。何のことかわからないわ。
重要な話。分かった。山本中尉を探そう。
Lieutenant Angelo had two of his subordinates with him and wore a stern expression on his face. They didn't have to say anything for us to realize that this had to be something very serious.